Place values and powers of 10. How could you easily identify a power of 10? Well, there's different ways in which we can identify them. They look different. We could identify that as a power of 10. Specifically, we would call it 10 to the second power. Very good. That's what it looks like in exponent form. Our base number is 10. Our exponent is 2. That's the easy way to identify a power of 10. Numerically, 10 to the second power means 2 of these 10s that we're going to multiply to each other, which equal 100. This and this are examples of your powers of 10. Usually you'll say 10 to the second power equals 100. Okay? So anytime you see, if you don't see it in exponent form, to identify it numerically is going to be a 1 with some zeros. Now, a power of 10 could also look like that. Okay? Is it a 1 with some zeros? Just like this is a 1 with some zeros. Okay? We say, well, this one doesn't have a decimal. Does it? Sure it does. Why didn't I put it down? There was nothing after it. So when we identify powers of 10, it's basically going to be a 1 with some zeros either after it or a 1 with some zeros either before it. And we're going to take a look at place value. We're going to take a look at how we're going to set this stuff up and get an understanding of what it really means. Now I'm going to show you a couple of tricks. All I'm going to copy up here is what you have in your book on page 6. Okay? So if I were to say, I'll give you some of these examples of powers of 10. And I said, okay, 10 to the 4th power, okay, is going to translate to being, okay, because 10 to the 4th power the long way is 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. 4 of the 10s multiplied against each other, okay? If I had 10 to the 3rd, okay, it would look like this because 10 times 10 is 100, and then 10 hundreds gives you 1,000. We did 10 to the 2nd, okay? And I want you to see if you can notice a pattern here. You notice a pattern that's taking place that you could use without having to have a chart right at your disposal there. Bree. Very good. Great observation. Exactly what I'm looking for. So if it's 10 to the 4th power, it's going to be a 1 with 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros after it. If it's 10 to the 3rd, we're going to have our 1 with 1, 2, 3 zeros after it. 10 squared, 2 zeros. Okay. 10 to the 1st is going to be a 1 with how many zeros after it? Just 1. 10 to the 0 is going to be a 1 with how many zeros after it? Just 1. Okay. So if I were to ask you, using this same logic, what is 10 to the 7th going to look like? You would say, Fred? Okay. And that would equate to what? 10 million. Okay. So that's how it works on the positive side. Okay, that's how it works on the positive side. On the non-decimal side. But I want to use these for a second, and I want to see if we can you tell me then, using powers of 10, how can I write that in expanded form? $400. If you were going to use a power of 10, you could get there by doing that. 100 is my power of 10, correct? So 4 times 100, since 4 is in my hundreds place, I'd multiply that to 100. So if I were using expanded form, I'd say 4 times 10 to the what? Second power. If I were to say, give me 64. Take a look at the first digit. It's a 6. In what place? Okay, so I'm going to have to do a 6 times 10, right? That gives me 60. And a 4 times what? Right, 4. Using powers of 10, what does that look like? 6 times 10 to the, how many zeros? 1, plus 4 times 10 to the, how many zeros after that 1? 0. So you're substituting your place value, like we worked on last week, and you're just going to take it a step further, and you're just going to apply powers of 10 to each place value. Okay? I'm going to give you one to try. Try that one. We're going to use parentheses for each of these. So what digit is this, first of all? It's an 8. Next step is I need to identify what place is that 8 in? Thousands. Now, what does 1,000 look like as a power of 10? 10 to the what power? How many zeros are in 1,000? 3. So I'm going to get 10 to the third power. And if you're not sure, look at what we're working with. We're working with the 8 and the 1,000. How many places come after it? 3. So it's the same kind of deal. All right, that one's separated. We're going to put a plus sign. Now we're going to focus on the 3. So 3 times 10 to the, how many places come after the 3 before we get to the decimal? 2, 10 to the second. Now the 2, how many places come after the 2 before you get to the decimal? Brett? 1. And then finally, the 9. And it doesn't look like there are any places after it. Okay, so your final answer is going to look like this. So when you do this for homework, and they ask you to put it in expanded form using powers of 10, that's what it's going to look like. What are some important features that we have here? Parentheses and addition signs. Okay, notice all of these exponents seem to go in descending order. And that only works because were any of these zeros? Or were they all actual digits? So I didn't have to skip over any. Where people get confused is, say they have something like this. They say, oh, okay, that's easy. 10 to the second. I don't have to do the 0, so I'm going to say that's 10 to the first. Is that right? No. Because the 5 doesn't have anything after it until you get to the decimal. Here, you're saying that it does. You're saying it has a 0 after it, not before you get to the decimal. So what should this one be? 0. Okay? Now are you ready to try one? There you go. 64,035 in expanded form. Okay, overall pretty good. The 6 is the first one, times 10 to the, looks like there are 4 places after because it's in the 10,000th place, right? So 6 times 10 to the 4th. And the 4, 3 places after it, 10 to the 3rd. What threw some of you for a loop was you went 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay? Be careful. If you're going to skip over the 0, that's fine. Some of you said, you know what, I'm going to use this 0, and I'm just going to keep everything in order and just call this 10 to the 2nd. Now I've got 4, 3, 2, because this is a 0 times that. I'm going to actually keep track of this. Is that okay? Can you do that? Yes, you can do that. Do you have to do that? No, but if it helps you keep better track, be my guest. Okay? After a while, you may not need to. And then the 3, that's our 10 to the 1st, and then our 5 is our 10 to the 0. Okay? If you think you're good with the whole numbers, at least on that side. If you're not, what's the issue? Okay. Are you good? You okay with this? Decimals work a little bit differently. We already said that 10 to the 0 power is going to be a 1 with 0 zeros after. Okay? Now, what they'll do is they'll have 10 to the negative 1 power. Now, obviously, a negative 1 is different than a positive 1. And we have not gone on the other side of the decimal. So what is this going to mean? It's going to mean a 1, 1 place from the decimal. Okay? And following that same pattern, it's going to be a 1, how many places from the decimal? How am I going to accomplish that? Right? My 1 is now 2 places from the decimal. 10 to the negative 3rd is going to be that 1, 1, 2, 3 places from the decimal. 10 to the negative 4. It's going to be that 1, but it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 places from the decimal. How is it different? It's different than this because we said, oh, okay, to the 2nd power is 2 zeros. We counted the zeros when we were on the actual whole number side. Here, we're going to count places. Don't confuse it. Remember, as we go, like we just came from 10 to the 1st power, now 10 to the 0, now we start working our way to the negative. Don't say, oh, okay, 10 to the negative 1, that's going to be 1 0 on the other side of the decimal. No, 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 1 place. So on the whole number side, that's when you can count zeros. On the decimal side, count places. It's very important. You have a guide in your book, okay, that helps you see that. Otherwise, you will never get anything for the 10th place. This place here would get completely skipped over. Now, when we work with expanded form with the decimal portion, let's say I want you to write 23 hundredths in expanded form using powers of 10. Well, first actual digit is the 2. All right. And how many places after the decimal does that 2 appear? 1. But if I put down positive 1, I'm going to have a 0 after, right? It's going to be like 20. So I'm going to make sure I put negative 1. So whenever you use the decimals, you're going to use the negative exponents. Added to the 3. How many places after? 2, so it's going to be what? Negative what? How many places after the decimal is the 3? 1, 2. Are we still going in descending order? Yeah, we are. We're still going in descending order. Yes? Well, can I answer your question? Okay. If I said, I'm going to give you this, or I'm going to give you this. Let's say I got 20 in one hand, 20 bucks in one hand, 20 cents in the other. And I'm going to put them behind my back, and I'm going to say, okay, pick a hand. Are you going to say, it doesn't matter, they're about the same? Like, would you be upset if you got the 20 cents? Right. Why? It's much smaller. Right. So am I going to take off points if he doesn't have the negative where it's supposed to be? Yeah, because it's not the same number. $20 isn't the same as 20 cents. Okay, so you might think it's nitpicking. It's just right. You'll never learn otherwise, okay? But that's all right. We'll have plenty of practice. All right. Sometimes we just have to roll. All right. As you look at this, I challenge all of you to make sure that before you go into any problem, before you start a new one, look at what you're working with first. What is the first thing you notice about this particular problem? Well, especially in comparison to the ones we've been doing up until this point. This is the first one I've asked you to do that have had places after the decimal. So something should go off in your head and say, oh, decimals. That must mean what kind of powers? Negative. So that being said, I'm just going to start with the 6. Why just start with the 6? Because it's my first actual digit. So here, there's my 6. And now since it's a decimal, how many places after the decimal did that 6 appear? Right, 1, but since it's on that side, it's a negative 1. Perfect. Great start. If you get off to that good start, you're going to be in good shape. Do I have to do the 0? No. I'm not going to. I'm going to show you what it looks like without it. There's my next actual digit. But be careful. If you skip it here, make sure you skip it there. How many places after the decimal does your 5 now come, Demaya? 3. And make sure that it's a negative 3. Okay? Yes or no? There you go. Watch. Remember, once we get past, remember things work a little bit differently on the whole number side as they do on the decimal side. So the first one I'm going to look at is the 1. I'm going to say, okay, how many places come after the 1 until I get to the decimal? 3. Okay? If you don't get that part right, you're not going to get the rest. So you have to get that first 1 in order to even stand a chance. Because you could do the rest of it technically correct by just taking them in order, but if you didn't start at the right place, you're never going to get it. So now the 4. So it should be 10 to the 2nd. 10 to the 6th. 10 to the... Then the 2 is 10 to the 0. Now, I've worked my way all the way to the decimal portion. Here is where I kind of switch gears and say, all right, the 7 comes how many places after the decimal? negative 1. It's actually 1, but I have to put the negative in front of it to signify that it's in the decimal portion. And then, breathe. The 2 comes how many places after the decimal? So it's negative 2. Okay? So negative 0 is not possible. 0 is just 0. It's only one of them. Okay? You're not the only one that did that. So you want to make sure that that doesn't happen again. All right. All right. I'm not going to ask you to do anything other than what we already did today. So on the practice side, that means numbers 1 through 5. What are the directions there? Write each number in expanded form using powers of 10. Just like we did in class. Some of them have decimal, right? Some of them have the decimal portion, some of them don't. Okay, some of them have both. And then on the homework side, just 1 through 4. Okay, because there again, the directions, expanded form, powers of 10. I'm not going to ask you to go opposite. We'll practice a couple of those tomorrow just to make sure, but I won't ask you to do anything that we didn't do together in class. So there it is.